Fellow math teachers, my name is Chris McClellan, and I will be discussing with you some exciting new ways we can help our math students with long-term retrieval of information. This is important because with all of us under the microscope, with the constant improvement of test scores, it is vital we find ways to help our students not forget that vital information. As we progress through the presentation, if at any time you have any questions, make sure to ask them at the end. Let us begin next with the goals of this presentation. Upon completion of this presentation, the math faculty of this district should be able to do the following. List 2 ways in which the retrieval of information is not effective. List 2 ways in which the retrieval of information is effective. Finally, be able to discuss the 2 ways in which these methods can be utilized effectively in the math classroom daily. The reason we have come to this presentation is to find a better way to prepare our math students for being able to retrieve the information needed to become more successful on assessment, as well as make the connections to previous learning experiences. We want our math students to have the ability to be able to recall information from previous lessons, to be able to help them with the current lessons they are on. With the continuous practice on previous concepts, this will help the students be able to retain the information for a longer period of time. Our job as educators is to provide the feedback required to allow the students to make the connections to their previous learning. This presentation will help you, the teachers, give the students the proper tools needed to retrieve the material needed for the long term. In the past, our students used to think that rereading material and highlighting important information was the right way to understand what they learn in the classroom. Unfortunately, this is not true. What researchers have shown is that rereading material causes close to 70% loss of retention. With math students, I have always felt if they memorize the formula to a problem, they would be successful on a test. As teachers, we have always felt that mass practice of the material was enough to make our students feel prepared. As research has just shown, 70% is a number that doesn't lie. I can remember the days when I was a student in elementary. Yeah, they had schools that far back, and we even had electricity. Students were told to memorize formulas and even memorize their multiplication facts. As a student, I did as I was told back then because teachers always had the right way of doing things. Looking back now, I realize that there were better ways to help retrieve that information I learned in class. When students are asked to learn math, they aren't being challenged to understand why it is important in their everyday lives. It is constantly solve problems 1 through 10 and be able to show your work. It is vital for the students to be able to reason why the problems they are solving is important in real-world applications. When flexible learning occurs, the longer the information is able to be retrieved and utilized. When students work in small groups and share information with one another, it allows them to solidify the information they have learned. It also allows students to bridge gaps in their learning from things that they may not have been completely sure of to creating a solid foundation to the understanding. It allows them to answer the questions they may have been asking themselves, like, why am I solving the problem this way? It also fills in the gaps with what was taught and how it was perceived in class. This is perfect for students that need reassurance in their learning. The partner can reaffirm what was learned. This partnership allows the student to create a compartment for their learning that happened in the past. This spaced learning allows the student to make an effort to retrieve that information. When teachers utilize a mnemonic device into learning, It allows the student to use an image or some kind of rhythmic message. This allows them to make the connection to what has happened in class to what they learned. These are excellent to use in the math classroom, whether it is used to teach the order of operations with PEMDAS, or when they are trying to learn about the different conversions in measurement with Gallon Guide. These allow the student to be able to make a visual image or a rhythmic pattern into their learning. When a student is trying to reflect on their learning, it is important that they find ways that are personal to them. This allows them to see the learning that has occurred and fill in the gaps with other students' own reflections that are shared in the class. By giving each student a positive outlook in their learning process, this will give them the motivation to work harder each and every time. This positive outlook will allow the student to be more willing to take chances in their learning. This will in turn allow the students to feel more confident in their ability. When the student does make a mistake, the feedback from the teacher will allow the student to know that mistakes are allowed and even welcome. These mistakes are just an opportunity for the students to deepen their understanding of the material and make a more personal connection to their learning. The key to creating success in the math classroom is having students continuously space out the work on a concept until the next time they need to retrieve that information. Research has shown that the more effective that the student has been with retrieving the information, the longer it will stick in their memory. By utilizing a time where students can share their reflection to the work they have done allows them to demonstrate their learning. By sharing this learning with other students, it allows them to make connections to previous learning as well. In my class, I used the day before an assessment to allow my students to fill in the reflection board with all the information they have learned from the beginning of learning of that concept. It has allowed them to bridge gaps in their learning as well as learn from their peers. I hope that this presentation has taught you that as educators, we have the potential to bring the best possible tools for our students to be successful in the classroom. By giving positive feedback for each student in the room, as well as spacing out the learning so that it forces the students to use serious effort in retrieving that information. Using mnemonic devices help bridge the gap in learning difficult information, and having students create their own devices that will allow them to retrieve information easily allows them to make that connection as well. If you have any questions about the information you have heard today, I will be here after the presentation. These are just some of the resources that were used in this presentation. Each is extremely detailed with specific examples on how they work in the classroom. They are a valuable resource to have in case you want more information. Thank you.